Good morning and welcome to Art 13131. And we're in week 7 still. But we're way past the halfway mark, so anything prior week 1 to week 6, you should be getting all that to me so I can critique it and give feedback and possibly give you a chance to get a better grade on it by working more on it with suggestions and examples. That's why it's most important to get your work completed by the following week it was posted. So let's talk about number 13, which is kind of involved. It's maybe one of the more involved weeks with assignments. They're kind of like the number 13 in homework is kind of on the drafting scale of drawing. It's perspective, and it's dealing with 1 and 2 point perspective. I will show you both. So number 13, let's go to Bing, and all these homes, and some of them are quite different than the other. Southwestern, modern, typical sort of neighborhood homes. They are all in 2 point perspective, meaning all the angles on one side or the other go to perspective points that are at the edge of the horizon. And if you start noticing that about every one of these, you'll notice that there's a corner of this home or the building that is closest to you. And the right side or left side, left side, that is going away from you. So this corner's further away than this one. This is because the house is sort of twisted. It's not straight in front of you, straight on. You're looking at the corner of it first, and then the sides go off in the distance. And so there's an illusion of depth there where everything appears to get smaller. So this corner down here looks a lot smaller than this one because of the perspective you're standing and looking at the building. And all these are like that. Here's the corner here that's closest, corner here, You get the idea. Start getting the idea that that corner, and that corner, and that corner, and that. This is kind of going off into the side. Different. That's even a totally different sort of thing. But there's going to be a right and left side to the building from the corner that's closest to you, and all those lines, windows, doors, roof, floor. One side goes to the perspective point here, meaning you draw a line from your corners to the perspective points. And then that's how you map out the perspective of the house, how it's going to look. There's many examples here. This is what we're talking about. There's a horizon line, which is your eye level, basically. And 2 perspective points right at the edge of the paper. Now, if you taped your paper down on the table, you could draw your perspective points way off on the outskirts of the paper. Just put a dot there on the table, if you can erase it, and use that as your perspective point coming off the paper. It makes your home look a little less squished, because typically, when you're standing there looking at something and there's horizon line, you could be way in the peripheral, could be way off here. That's the end of the horizon line. And that's basically what you're using with drawing these homes, using the 2 point perspective. But you can put them on the paper too to get this point across and draw it this way. But as you see, from the corner that's closest to you, which is the first line you draw, and you draw the corners of the house that are on the ends, depending on how big you want your house. And everything else, the size of this corner, tall-wise, and here, all depend on the perspective point line you're drawing from the bottom and the top. And then all the windows and doors have this line too. And that's where anything horizontal is on one side perspective point or the other side. This side's going to that one. And you start understanding this now when you get that perspective in your mind. And even the sidewalk does the same thing. If you're going to put a sidewalk in front of your house, it works with the perspective point lines. Okay, let me go down a little further. Now you can have box homes with no pitched roof, peaked roof. The peak roof is something that is basically governed by the middle of the house on one side, the middle of the wall. So slightly on the other side of that, but then you come down to the corners of your house that way. But the roof, if you notice, let me get a better one. Well, you can put it in any, it can be like your bird eye view on this one. But it's harder to, if you haven't done this before, I suggest just getting a horizon line, basically either in the middle or close to the middle going across, and use that. I'm trying to get that one template that I saw in here a while back. This one. So, in the most basic form, if you've never done this before, if you have, or you want to challenge yourself and build more to the house, you can do it. But basically, here's your corner of the house that's closest to you. Here's your horizon line. They call these vanishing points too. I'm calling them perspective points. Here's your two perspective points on the horizon line. And you have your closest wall corner to you and the end corners. Now you start connecting this and you see the cube you're making, a box shape. Then all the windows and doors, wherever you want them, work with the perspective point line wherever you want those windows, how tall you want them, where on the side of the building you want them, how many you want. That all works with your perspective point depending on which side of the house you're on. So you're on the left side or the right side. Then you start making a perspective point line faintly so you can erase it. You want to be able to erase these lines out at one point or another and just leave the house. That's the tops and the bottoms of every window and door. Work with that perspective line. Everything else, the sides, are all vertical lines. The roof is basically, you're taking the line in the middle of the wall here and just on the other side of that, if you'll notice. You can do it this way too by putting an X, and then you'll see where that line is right here. If you put an X on the side of the wall, you'll see where that middle is, because everything appears to get shorter and smaller on the other side of this corner that's closest to you. So right here is going to be a little bit over the halfway mark in the middle of this. So you can do that by getting that X. Then put your line up, and then that's going to tell you how high you want you decide on how high you want that pitch. And then you're coming down to the corners. The same here. You can govern that if you want to put a perspective point line up here, or you can just drag a ruler over, holding this line, drag it over straight, and then you'll find that angle. But you can put a dot up here way high in the sky and get that same pitch of the roof on either side. Then the top of the roof, of course, goes to the perspective point. So does the side of the wall here and the floor and anything else you're putting down, a road, all works with the perspective points. Okay. There's going to be a video on this, so you can work with that. I wanted to show you you can also do city blocks with this. This is 1 point perspective, though, which I'd rather you do 2 points perspective. This is just to show you in the illusion of depth what I was talking about with roads and a one point perspective as opposed to 2. So the 1 point is right in front of you right here because you're standing right here and everything is on the sides of you and nothing's twisted. Everything's straight on, basically. These walls on the sides are straight toward you. But that's why everything appears to get smaller and shorter or closer together as it goes away to the perspective point way down here. The road, this is converging lines, the sidewalk, the dots in the middle of the road, the lines in the middle of the road, all go to the perspective point down here. So you never draw them straight, because then you'd be like you're elevated like a drone looking down at the road, not standing here looking down at the length of the road going off into the distance. That's the 1 point perspective down there. Okay, that's what I wanted to show you with the illusion of depth. You can do it in rooms too. So you could do a 1 or 2 point perspective with the corner of the room, because this is kind of the corners down here. Okay, all the lines go to the perspective point, which is out here on the horizon line, right about here. Everything else that's vertical is just vertical. It's not tilted. It's just straight up and down. All the chair legs, lights on top, when they're on the horizon line, that's just straight and vertical here. But you can get this going by putting the perspective point on a horizon line back here and then draw 4 lines coming from the perspective point. Then you see, oh, I got a room going right here. It's a hallway or a room, okay? Everything else is going to work off of that same way. So that was 1 point perspective. Here's another 1 point perspective where the vanishing point is here. Perspective point. And as you can see, these little faint lines going off of it. Well, everything in the room works off those lines. The angle on the top and the bottom of everything, or on the side if you're talking about a bed or a couch or a cabinet, and it's tops and bottoms when you're talking about pictures on the wall or windows. Everything goes to the perspective point. Then you can start making the shape of anything you want in your room. 2 point perspective is a little different. I think I got a video for that too, but just so you understand, let's get a real basic one here. Some of these have a lot of content, and that's really nice. And you can keep going and going and going with it. Basically what you're doing is this. You still have your 2 point of perspective on a horizon line out there. Here's a horizon line, and here's the 2 points of perspective. Then you draw lines going down and out from there, and draw a corner. Now you see that your corner of the wall is furthest away from you. It's inverted from the house, because the house you're standing outside. The room you're inside. So you're standing here looking at the corner of the room. It's away from you over there in the corner. It's the furthest thing away from you. And all the walls are now getting closer to you as they come from the corner out. And this is how you get that done, by drawing two perspective lines, dots right here, drawing your lines, putting a corner in, and then you can put the furniture in there, like a bed or something. A bed, a cabinet, pictures on the wall. Let me see if I can show you. Yeah. So they use these as perspective points rather than going right to the edge of the paper, which would probably be better. Here's your corner of your room. Here's your lines going up to the ceilings. And here's your lines going to the floors. God darn it. Why did I do that? Oh well. Anyway. And then the box-shaped bed is the same perspectives. Now you're working with something that sort of looked like the house, where the corner is closest to you here, and everything else is moving away from you. Working with the perspective points and vertical lines for your corners, you can get all this done. It's kind of simple once you start thinking about it. And then they get really elaborate, right? But you don't have to do that. You can just get basic with it and do a basic room. I would like something in the room rather than nothing. So, the perspective points are going maybe over here. If you follow the floor line and the roof line, it's about right there. Same with this one. It's over here somewhere. And then all this works to those perspective points. Anything on the sides of this is just vertical lines that are straight up and down, not tilted. Then you put a window, a door, blah, 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 whatever you want. Okay, so look for those two videos. One's going to be on 2-point perspective house. One's probably 2-point perspective room. But if you go to Bing and put 1-point perspective drawings, in fact, if I put a corner of the room in here, you'll see. You'll see lots of that. This is the 1-point perspective, meaning there's a vanishing point in the center on a horizon line down the end of the room. It's outside the room, of course, but all these lines go to that perspective point rather than to the 2-point perspective. You can draw the room this way because these, that's the corners of the room down there. Either way on the room, but the house or city block should be. See the city block idea? 2-point perspectives, one here, here. And then all these corners are facing you, closest one here. All the other buildings just sort of tear off from that. They overlay each other. And then you go down the block this way, you got a building. Well, the corner is here on that building, so that line goes to that perspective point. Corner of that building's right here, so that line on that side of the building goes to that perspective point. And you just work them all like the beginning, the first one. You put it here and realize that he has a left and right side from the corner that's facing you, closest to you. And then you work each side with the perspective point. All right. So any questions on that? Try to look at the video and get some ideas. If you really have still stumped, let me know. And, we can set up a Zoom meeting or something about that. You can do the modern house. You can do the traditional house. I prefer you to put it somewhere when you're done, like not just floating in air. Put a tree, maybe some horizon mountains back there, and finish it up, Tone out the sky, the ground. Put a couple trees, maybe a pathway. I mean, you can do this. It's not that horrible or terrible to get your head around. Believe me, I've seen plenty of students do it and come around to figuring this out. But yeah, I would like you to put it somewhere in a setting. Okay? Okay, let's talk later and look at those videos, and we'll get with you next week.